Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace filled ways to take care of themselves. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. I am really, really excited to have this conversation today with Lori Massicot. Lori Massicot is the midlife sobriety coach on a mission to raise awareness toward the life-changing impact of sobriety as we age. She is a certified life recovery and nutrition coach, specializing in helping women in midlife feel better inside and out without relying on alcohol to get them there. Lori hosts the highly popular 250 and Beyond podcast, where she and her guests highlight the beauty of aging and the freedom of living alcohol-free. She's a homebody, 80s music fan, yes, yes, me too, and Southern California native, where she lives with her husband, son, and their sweet pup, Beatrice. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me. It is so nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really excited to have this conversation, but I do have to know what kind of pup that Beatrice is.
Oh gosh, Beatrice is a mix. She's a little bit of black lab. She's got white on her chest and polka dots on her legs, white and black polka dots, and maybe a little bit of pit bull. She is a pound puppy and absolutely adorable. Really, really sweet.
She sounds like my Grace. My dog Grace is a pit bull mix with a little bit of lab who was a stray. Like, she showed up on my driveway and made us all fall in love with her.
Oh, I love pound puppies.
I do too, and they're all, I feel like 90% are pit bull mix, and I just don't think I could ever have a dog that is not part pity. I mean, they're just the best. It's such a shame it's just such a shame what has happened to them. And I could talk on and on and on about my Grace and learn about your Beatrice, but that's not why we're here. So you are this is a new conversation here on the Graced Health podcast, and I'm really glad to have you here to help us walk through this. I feel like it's only appropriate to kind of just come out. I mean, even when I reached out to you, I was like, I would love to have a conversation on this, but full disclosure, I'm not sober. So we all kind of have our own relationship to alcohol. Mine is more that, like, my husband and I enjoy wine on the weekends. That's kind of it. And we'll do like dry January. Sometimes it extends into March. But we've had these little conversations along the way of like, well, I don't know, maybe we take this out, or, we just kind of explore things. So before we get going on that, I would love to know, what drew you to a sober lifestyle?
Yeah, I was in my 40s. I was around 43 when I started kind of exploring it. It wasn't that I was drawn to it. It was, I think I needed to quit drinking. I started drinking when I was 14 in 1982. So by that time, I had drank very consistently, and I was in perimenopause. And I was questioning my drinking. I was fearful that I had to quit drinking because I never thought that I would be sober. So I wasn't necessarily drawn to it like it's an exciting thing, which is what I help women do today. But it was a necessity for me. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to continue with my drinking for much longer. And so at 45, in 2013, that's when I made the ultimate decision I cannot keep going like this, and I'm going to stop drinking.
Okay. What I love about that story is that what I'm gathering from that is you've had such a great experience with it, and now you're trying to portray it in a different light, as more of like a, hey, maybe this will enhance your life, rather than we're in a 911 situation and we've got to do this or else. It's more of like, and else, without alcohol in our life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an option. And that's my mission, is just to spread awareness to it, because when I was at that point, there was no one around me that was talking about it. There was no one around me that was sober. And so I definitely remember Googling, things in the middle of the night. Am I an alcoholic? What does this mean? all of it. And I just know how scary that is when you finally just get that first hit of, hey, this might be something a little bit more than what I think it is.
Got it. Yeah. That that does make sense. And it's funny, I've seen a lot on Instagram in particular, you start poking around and then all of a sudden every feed on my Instagram is like non-alcoholic elixirs. And I know Katy Perry has a new thing out, and it's kind of fun and exciting to see. And I've seen that bars now have, like, I don't know what they call them, but basically sober happy hours where they'll make, I don't know what mocktails, is that what we call them? I'm not really sure, but there's definitely more awareness now. And I love what you're doing, and you're walking along those of us who maybe have had alcohol in our story for a long time, and who might be willing to or ready to just kind of explore or be curious about what that is like without it. So I'm super glad you're here. One of the things, we have this podcast is really focused on health, right? So it's physical health, spiritual health, mental health. And one of the things I have observed is this, I mean, even like I think back to, The Office, when it's like, does anyone here drink? And I can't remember the character's name. He's like, well, I have a glass of wine every day for the antioxidants. And we have this whole thing about like, oh, wine especially is healthy for you. And I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I just kind of think that's BS for the most part. I mean, maybe like one glass a day, but what I have witnessed in truth, like where I am, is very few people just have one glass. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It depends on how you are drinking. And honestly, I think it's just more of that chronic use. Like, I have a glass of wine every night, 1 to 2 glasses, right? And we think that that's not making that much of an impact on our mental and our physical health or spiritual health, even, but it is over time. And especially as we get older, there's all kinds of case studies out there. I just was listening to this podcast that I've been listening to, the Huberman Lab, it's called. And he did an excellent episode on the effects of alcohol. And he was saying, with that chronic drinking, it doesn't have to be, a bottle. It could be a glass a night, and especially for women, as we get older, we don't metabolize alcohol as we used to. It depends on our weight. It depends on the circumstance. Honestly, I think that, to put it just very simply, I think anybody who has no problems with alcohol is a very occasional drinker, maybe a few times a year, right? I think that's what it is. So definitely the Cancer Society has come out, said no amount of alcohol is good for cancer risk. And so for me, I think that it has to just go back to what's right for you.
Mm.
I wasn't worried about the health effects back then. When I was questioning drinking, I wasn't. I should have been, probably, but I wasn't. It was just, I was questioning, how it was showing up in my life, how I was spending days hungover, how, it wasn't, I didn't Google, what are the health risks to me right now. It was just like, I'm not showing up as my best self. I know this, and it's only getting worse. And so, I really do feel like you said, it's not true.
Yeah.
They tout it as this could be like really good for antioxidants. This could be, 1 glass, have it. It could be, you got to look at the pour too, because just a glass of wine, a serving is like 5 ounces. I was like a half a bottle. You get those big glasses too. I don't want to make light of it, but you get those big glasses, and the way that we're served now in restaurants and in bars, it's so much more than 1 serving, right? So I was drinking a lot more than what a normal serving would
the
be.
1 glass a day for women. Yes. Well, I really like how you said what's right for you. So I recognize, for me, like, I am almost to a fault, fiercely protective of my sleep. And the bottom line is alcohol interferes with my sleep. And, especially in my late 40s, it causes the hot flashes even more. And so that is a huge driver of what's right and what's wrong for me. And what's wrong is drinking. It's, like, I need to make sure that if I'm going to have more than a glass, I mean, and again, I would not say it's over drinking, but it's more than 1. And it impacts my sleep, and then in the next day, and then you're foggy, and, all of that kind of stuff, for sure. So, Lori, I have been, oh, go on.
No, I was going to say, and you mentioned something earlier. You said the stories, like the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Like, I need a glass of wine. I deserve a glass of wine. I need to unwind at the end of the day. And then you realize, especially as we get older, that sleep, it's precious. If we're not sleeping well, then it makes our days so much more difficult. So just looking at it as that versus I have a problem with drinking, it's really honestly, I want to sleep better. I want to feel better the next day. I don't want to wake up feeling foggy. I'm going through perimenopause or I'm postmenopause, and I feel like, I need my sleep even more now than I ever have in my life. And that's why I always say I think midlife and beyond is the best time to stop drinking, because we are not clear and present when we are drinking. And I feel like, so many of these answers that we're looking for in life get so muddled when we're drinking, to just step away from it and give ourselves clarity and to find like a new interest in life besides drinking. I think it's just such an important time for us.
And the other thing too, that one of the way I kind of planned for this conversations, and I'll share here in a second, but kind of broke it up into three areas that alcohol really permeates. But one thing I'm kind of translating from what you're saying is, in midlife, we have a lot of transitions going on. Our kids are going off to school. We may be experiencing some job changes. Maybe it's, semi-retirement. It's something like that. And so because of that, our rituals are changing, our rhythms are changing, and that might be a nice time to figure out, okay, what else do I need to change? Maybe around my alcohol story to really feel like I'm fully optimized for this next phase.
Yeah, all those things that you just listed are things that we think that we have to drink because of. Now I'm an empty nester. I wasn't drinking before, but now I'm an empty nester. So that's my best friend at night. I'm going to comfort myself. Or I'm grieving. I'm going through divorce. I have financial loss. I'm taking care of my aging parents. All of those reasons that we think that we deserve a drink or need a drink are also the real reasons why we shouldn't be drinking. And I don't want to say shouldn't, because I really don't like to use that term, but why we should choose to live alcohol free. Let's say that.
That's great. I like that. I like that term. Yeah. Like, so I mentioned, we've had a lot of time. I've had a lot of time to think about this because I think I invited you on back in like July. So I'm really hoping to be within our time frame on here. But I started thinking about, okay, look, all of these, this is just kind of in my life. And then also in conversations that I've been having with my friends over the years, I feel like alcohol really is in three major areas. And I'm sure I'm kind of missing some, but one of them is relationships, one of them is rituals, and one of them is relief. And you just touched on all three of those. So I'd like to kind of pick some of those apart a little bit and have you help us walk through maybe a different lens or a different way of thinking about this in an alcohol-free lifestyle. Because I think if we're really honest, there's a lot of fear about if we are to take this out, what does that mean, for example, for my friendships when we get together and it's centered around enjoying a new bottle of wine or, happy hours or something like that. So let's just talk about friendship changes when we take alcohol out, how to navigate that. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I have lots of thoughts on that. That was one of my biggest concerns. I was so worried that I was going to get uninvited or left out. I wasn't going to feel like I was having fun while everybody else was drinking. And so I really had to change a lot in my lifestyle. I think one of the biggest myths that we have is that we have to figure out how to keep living this life that we were living while drinking without drinking. And really what we need to do is shift that lifestyle into better habits, into new routines, right? Just as you were talking about, we don't have to keep doing the same things that we were doing while we were drinking. We can change it up. And I think with any kind of relationship, if we're feeling like we're only included in that relationship or we feel more bonded and connected to this person because of alcohol, is really a red flag to me. I really want to step back and say, is this true? And let's see what it's like if we're not drinking. Let's see if we meet for coffee or we go out on a hike instead of meet for our Friday night happy hour, right? Let's change it up. Let's see where this relationship really is. Easier said than done. I know that. But yeah, I had to make a lot of changes in my in my life, because I was sitting for hours at brunch with my family and friends. I was going wine tasting often. I was doing things that I don't do anymore. I just don't do it. And I felt in early sobriety that I have to say no a lot more than I say yes, because of the fact that I knew myself. It wasn't easy. And so I had to give myself that grace to just be, with myself and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like being okay or content with choosing different things and saying no to the things that normally were an easy yes to. When I'm hearing you
Yeah, and
say.
like I said, it's easier said than done. It really is.
Mhm.
But when you look at it in the long term, I'm really glad that I made that choice for myself. 100%. Did some of my relationships change? Absolutely, they did. And we're all okay. Everybody is okay.
Yes, yes, that's so
It's a
good.
good reminder. When we do what we want to do for ourselves, everybody is going to be okay. It might take some time because people don't normally adhere to change easily.
Mhm.
So, it's just kind of showing up and being a different version of ourselves that we're working on.
That's so true. I'm curious, and I hope you're okay. If you're not okay with me asking this question, that's fine. But where does your relationship, as it results or revolves around bonding with your husband, look like? Because I can tell you, for me, like we really like just sitting outside, like with a bottle of wine and just talking, and it's good for us. And I hear you with what you said. It's not the only time that we connect, right? But it's sometimes, I mean, if I'm totally honest, like it lends a little bit more toward a vulnerable conversation, maybe to an authentic. And there are other ways to get that, and we do get that. But that's a really nice compliment. So if you don't mind sharing, and if you're not okay with that, then that's totally fine too. But like, where did your husband fit into all of this in terms of his alcohol story and when you were starting to make some changes in your life?
Oh, sure. Well, I met my husband in 1997 in a bar, and we drank a lot together. We drank a lot together. We got married in 99. We had our son in 2001. And let's see, I got sober in 2013. So there was a lot of drinking that was done. And I remember being at home by myself the night I quit drinking because my husband and son were camping, and he came home the next day and I said, I can't drink anymore. And he said, well, I don't have to drink either. And both of us were like, yeah, right. This isn't going to happen, right? This is not going to happen. What else are we going to do? I mean, I'm not even kidding when I say that's what we did. That was our weekends, at least three days out of the week were spent drinking. And so it took a while. It took a lot of adjustment. But what we learned pretty early on was, and this is my experience, I was becoming sort of a mean drinker. And I was lashing out a lot at him for no reason. I was grieving the loss of my mom, who passed at 40 when I was 42. And so I was going through a lot. And what we realized early on is we're not fighting as much. He's not a fighter. I'm the one who will fight. He's more of like, he doesn't like it. He will step away from it. He's just very easygoing person. And our relationship only got better over time. We had to find new things to do together besides drink, but it actually started to be really fun. And I remember on my 1 year anniversary of my sobriety, we went to the Del Mar races here in San Diego, and we saw a concert, which was my favorite band that I had seen multiple times while drinking. I never thought I would go to a concert without drinking. And we went and did that for the 1 year. And I remember thinking at that time, wow, we can do anything. We could have fun without drinking. I was still trying to convince myself at that time, but I was actually seeing that our relationship was starting to change and get better. And that's what it's been. It's been 25 years, and now it's just it's very easy for me to open up anyway. But I get it when you feel like that's kind of, it's loosening you up a little bit for conversations, for relations, all of it. I get it. It just give yourself time to adjust to something different.
That's good. And I like how you said that you were kind of leaning into those, um, I don't know what the right word is, but like positive consequences, right? Like, oh, this is something that is added value to our relationship and that we can do. And I love that he just was like, all right, let's go. I'm in this with you. So that's, wow. What a super supportive husband.
He is. And know that this isn't happening often with women, and so I get it. I totally get it. I work with several women whose, husbands just are not on board with it. But, we can't control their drinking. We have to just step aside and say, we're going to work this out together. And I'm no relationship expert. Let me tell you that right now. I
I'm
don't
not
give
either.
advice here. Yeah. But we can figure something else out. And then again, going back to kind of what I was saying with a friendship or any kind of relationship, do we really want alcohol to be the glue that holds that relationship together? Because that's not good for anybody.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true.
Mhm,
So along
mhm,
these same lines as relationships, one of the other elements that I was thinking that is so prevalent, clearly by definition, is the happy hour. I mean, there's a lot of work talk that's done at happy hours. There's a lot of there's a lot that goes on. And so how, if someone is in a situation where maybe they don't even feel like they're over drinking or over, doing whatever, but the reality is those, little handshakes at happy hour make a difference in your career. Do you have any thoughts or guidance on how to navigate that? Um, or maybe it's just as simple as like show up and drink the mocktails that we talked about.
mhm. Yeah, honestly, I know this stuff is going on after work events. I know that people are going to happy hour. Since I've worked for myself for so long, I don't remember happy hour. But yeah, I don't know if we, Amy, I don't know if we were talking about this before you hit recording or after, but we were talking that you were saying, people are having sober happy hours, bars and restaurants, it's changing. People are changing things up. So you can for sure go out and get something else. And this is what I will say, if anybody's going to ask you what is in your glass and be really concerned about what you're drinking, it's really coming off of, I'm a little concerned with my drinking, or, we have those alcohol pushers in our life, right? And sometimes, especially at work events, if it's your superior or if it's somebody that you're working with, you feel awkward and saying, hey, I'm just not drinking, and they keep pushing it. I would just do the French exit, back yourself out if you're feeling awkward. And just call it a night. But honestly, I was so worried about that as well, going anywhere, and people are going to be so concerned about me not drinking. And it's just not the case. But for me, I just had to have something in my hand. So it was either a Diet Coke or it was a sparkling water. There wasn't mocktails back then for me that I knew of. Anything. But again, I think now, since the tides are changing and bars and restaurants do have full mocktail menus, NA drinks. I mean, honestly, you could go out and have the best time while not getting the after effects of alcohol and waking up the next day or in the middle of the night, not sleeping, and
Yeah.
then having to show up at work the next day hungover. Yeah.
That's a really great point you make, that, and this is kind of across the board, and there's a quote somewhere, but like we're probably more concerned about it than others are. I mean, if people are out, I mean, most emotionally healthy people are going to, hey, what are you drinking? Oh, I'm just having a Diet Coke. I'm just having a sparkling water. Okay. And that's it. But we have in our head, like, oh gosh, are they going to think I'm kind of weird if I'm not drinking, but I'm in a happy hour? And probably most people don't care. You're so right about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's in all areas of our lives. We have to remember, I used to have this thing about going to the gym, like everybody's going to be watching me, and nobody's watching me at the gym, honestly. But it stems back from high school when I started drinking. Like, I'm going to go along with everybody else. That's what we did. I mean, it was very clicky, and that's what we did. And so I just had created that story. Especially, I had to go to my 30-year reunion, my high school reunion. I was 2 years sober, and I thought, oh, everybody's going to be. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Nobody asked me anything. But we're always more focused on what other people are going to be thinking about us. And then we have to remember they're focused on what other people are thinking about them as well. So, you know,
So true. Oh, that's a great point. Yes.
no matter what
Okay.
age we are, we're still worried about this kind of stuff. Yes.
Yes. And thankfully, I think it does decrease as it gets older. I was just having a conversation with a woman about my age, and I was like, anyway, the end of the conversation was, it's because we just kind of don't give a damn anymore. And it's great.
The beauty of
So much,
aging,
yeah.
definitely.
Yes, totally, totally. Okay, so one of the other things that I started thinking about, because what I wanted to do is approach this conversation from a curious and a realistic, like, position of for people who are like, I'm interested and I'm curious, but I'm just not how sure how I would incorporate it in this element. So we kind of talked about some relationships with our partners and socials and happy hour. Another element that I see a lot is people using alcohol to kind of bridge that space between work and home. And it's okay, work is done and now I'm going to have, open up a bottle of wine or whatever it is. And it's kind of that transitionary, right? It's more of a ritual of like, my day is done and now I get to, I've worked hard and now I get to. And I say this with complete um love and warmth in my heart, understanding that sometimes, that this is a need and this is not a shame and a guilt thing, but it's just more of an observation and conversations too that I've had. So I'm wondering if you have any recommendations on allowing ourselves to have those rituals of of bridging that gap between work and home, but without popping open, without taking a cork out of a bottle.
Mhm. Gosh, yeah, I think that those end of the day rituals are so important, and especially, well, for me, I know I work from home, and you work from home, so it's kind of like that end of the day, everything kind of blurs together. So I always take Beatrice out for her walk around 5 o'clock. And then I will come back in, and that is my time to take a shower, listen to my music, or listen to an Audible book or something while I'm in the bathroom, and kind of just like that's my end of the day ritual. And I started doing that years ago. I'll get my pajamas on, depending on what I'm doing that night. But, there's so many other things that we can do for ourselves. But I truly believe in we have to have something that we look forward to at the end of the day, especially when we're removing alcohol, because let's be honest, it's something that we look forward to. But then again, as you continue down that ritual, you may not be looking forward to it anymore. You're just very drawn to it because that is what you've been doing for so many years, right? So the best way to do that is to just start really small. I recommend not having it on hand for a bit, whether you either, store it in the garage or you just really stop buying it, to give yourself a break from it, and then start to look around because, rituals are really personal. What do you enjoy doing? For me, I very much enjoy just having family time with my family, watching Netflix or a movie or some show that we're watching together. That's something that I really look forward to at the end of the day. But what is it for you? Do you like to be busy? It could be as simple as I have clients that love puzzles, and they'll put puzzles out on their kitchen table and they'll just like make that kind of their thing that they're doing maybe while they're cooking dinner. Because I know that's triggering for a lot of women. Pour that sparkling water, pour something else in a glass just to give yourself the effect. It could even be a wine glass, something that you already use. Um, but there's so many things I really recommend just making a list. What do I enjoy doing? And then when we get in this funk of I'm drinking and we're continuing that cycle, it's kind of like, I don't even know what I enjoy doing. When I stopped drinking, it was, I don't know what I want to do. I really don't know who I am without alcohol. I don't have really any other interest. So for me at that point, I started going to the gym. And that was when I started exercising really consistently in my life at 45. So look to what you enjoy doing, because I can say, go and meditate for 15 minutes at the end of the day. But if you don't enjoy doing it, I don't enjoy meditating. It wouldn't work for me. So there's so many other things that we could be doing for ourselves, that will still give you that reward that alcohol does. A lot of women, bowl of ice cream. Keep it really simple. Like, what is that something that I will really look forward to? I just always look forward to washing the day off of my body, and just that's the way I shut everything down. Like, I walk past my desk and everything, but that's how I shut everything down. So,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, finding something to look forward to. It's funny, just in the last 3 or 4 months, my husband and I, so he's kind of on a hybrid. He works in an office sometimes and works at home, and then like you said, I work from home all the time. And we will sit down and it's become our little ritual of, okay, let's do the Wordle and then let's do the New York Times Mini. And it takes 10 minutes,
Yeah.
but it's really fun to just sit down and we look forward to doing it. And I enjoy like getting in the kitchen and chopping, and that's very cathartic to me, right? Chopping up vegetables or creating dinner. So but I like how you say start small and be realistic too. So 15 minutes of meditating, if that's not your thing, then don't do it. Find something different. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah, and oftentimes it could just be, meditation can just be, I'm just going to sit on the couch. I'm just going to have my mocktail on the couch, or maybe I'm going to have a tea, or a coffee if you're a coffee drinker later in the day. Like, I'm just going to sit here and I am just going to relax. We got to give ourselves more time to relax and just do nothing. We don't always
Yes.
have to be so busy.
Yes. We've had a lot of conversations over on my Facebook group about, we call it be still time. And so, as you know, this is a faith-based community. And so we call it be still and know that I'm God, but like where we just kind of sit down and we're just quiet for like 10 minutes with God. And so that's another option too. If someone's trying to figure out like, how can I find something to look forward to? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just being still, because how often are we still when we're not intentional about it? Hardly ever.
Yeah. I think that's the best option. I really do. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So we talked a little bit about relationships and rituals. And the other thing too, that I think is a little more tricky and it's a little harder, um, is relief, right? So we as a society, as a culture, I mean, there is a lot of, oh, I need to take the edge off. I need to wind down. I just need to power down for a little bit, right? Like fill in the blank. And then we'll use alcohol of one version or another to do that. So, I know you're not a doctor, right? You made very clear about that, but I just wonder if you have any thoughts about like how to mentally, I don't want deal with is the right word. It's not the great word, but like what kind of guidance would you have with that? Like if that's where people are finding that they're really leaning into alcohol the most, um obviously, help in forms of therapy and counseling, but I'm sure that there are other things that I'm not thinking about. So I would love for you just to give us some maybe other suggestions on how to take the edge off rather than a glass of wine or whatever.
Yeah, I think we have to really look to our breathing first and just say,
Mhm.
what is really agitating me? Because I can get agitated. I drank because I was socially anxious, and I've had panic attacks throughout my life. I've had, a lot of anxiety, which I still have anxiety, but it's nothing near where it was when I was drinking, because drinking actually was making my anxiety so much worse. But it took me a while to figure that out as well. So I am that kind of person where at the end of the day, if I'm really like pent up and there's stuff going on, the number one thing that I did before I stopped drinking, that led me to stop drinking, was start writing in a journal. And again, now this is something that's very personal and not something that a lot of women want to do or like to do. But I think journaling, I always say, write it out, walk it out, work it out, talk it out. Um, Create it out, make some art at night, anything like that, that is, again, going back to finding something that helps you relax. If it's, just sitting down and being still, if it's maybe watching something on TV where you don't have to put a lot of thought into it, and it's just something that you enjoy, like a Hallmark movie or my favorite Lifetime movies, something like that, to distract you. I think that we have to look at it as these are healthy distractions for us for right now, and it's not always going to be like that. If we take a significant amount of time away from, this pattern of drinking that we have, we're going to develop these skills and hone them to where even if we are so anxious, we can choose something else, like being, just the really simple things, being still, taking a walk out in nature, dancing. That's my favorite thing to do. I put on my 80s music and my headphones, and every day, multiple times throughout the day, I've already done it. I dance, and I call it my solo dance party. And, just getting it out, maybe taking a shower, maybe screaming into a pillow. But I feel like too, we learn so many skills as we get older, especially when we're removing alcohol. We learn how to ask for what we need from others. If there's resentment building up, we learn how to talk to the people in our lives to let them know, this is what's happening. And man, that makes such an impact in our lives other than let me just escape all of it through drinking and then waking up the next day with still the same resentment. If we could have a little, maybe a 2 or 5 minute conversation with somebody and let them know how we're feeling, oh, it just takes loads off of us. And I think that we get lost in that art of conversation and asking for what we need because we're just so used to drowning everything out.
That's really powerful when you say, you learn how to ask for what you need. And what I wrote down, you see, I take a lot of notes when I when I do my interviews,
I like
but
it.
being emotionally attuned to ourselves and being able to verbalize that rather than numbing it or using it to using alcohol to, not deal with it, which is the easy way, right? It's not
I don't think
exactly.
it is. I get it. We think that it's easy, but it's actually making life much more harder than it is,
That's
right? I
true
mean,
in the
just
long term.
having
Yes.
that emotional awareness and feeling our feelings, I think that's the key to freedom in all areas of our lives, especially drinking. If we can be with our emotions and remind ourselves, I'm really sad right now, but I'm also happy. Or I'm really mad right now, but I'm also really grateful for life. I'm really grateful for this person I'm mad at. Um, and it's not, tricking ourselves. It's just realizing that we don't have to be one way or the other. We could be always. We could feel all of our feelings, right? And
Right.
we're fooling ourselves when we're saying alcohol is going to take that all away. It's for a very short amount of time. If you look at it as it's only about 20 minutes, you get that relief, that first sip. I will never forget it. It's that first sip that I get from my coffee in the morning, just like, I'm
Yeah.
feeling good now. I'm waking up, right? But
Right.
we have to remind ourselves alcohol, that first glass is very, very short. If you're a fast drinker like me, it's really short, right? And so what else can you do for 10 or 20 minutes to take that edge off?
Mhm.
And start experimenting with it and make it fun. This is
That's
something
true.
like alcohol and drinking. That's one option. There's a million other options that I could do. What else is there for me?
So true. So true. And yes, I mean, you said it's easy in the short term. So that is what I meant for that. Not, I recognize that that's not
Yep.
necessarily going to be the easiest thing. You will make life a lot more difficult by stuffing your emotions. Something I've had to learn how to work through, right?
Yes.
Shoving it on the carpet actually
Hmm.
doesn't help. So weird.
Oh, yes. I'm the queen of avoidance. I mean, still in some areas of my life, but with drinking and everything that I was dealing with, let me just avoid it. Let me just forget that it's there. Make life better by drinking. That's what I thought I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Where really it's just putting another stumbling block in front of everything. Okay, so you shared that you really felt like you had a problem and that you needed to quit drinking. What would your response be, or maybe encouragement to be to someone who's like, I don't really feel like I have a problem, but I'm kind of interested in this. Talk to us a little bit through there, because you probably have some. I mean, I know you do a lot of coaching, women who are like, "Oh, I don't really have a problem, but maybe I should quit." So how do you walk with women through that?
Yeah, I think that the simplest way to look at that is that you can stop drinking um, just because you want to stop drinking. Or you're
Mhm.
curious about it. Why wait for rock bottom? I think that's a myth. Like, oh, it's not that bad yet. Let me wait. That's where I was. And I questioned my drinking for 2 years. I used to write, in my journal, well, I'm not that bad yet. Or I had, just all of the justifications and the excuses and me just really bartering with myself. What am I waiting for? It's kind of like this theme that was going on in my head. Like, what exactly am I waiting for here? Um, will it benefit me? Will it help me to feel better? That's where I was. So, but again, that's kind of that myth. If you don't drink, you've got a problem. That's like there's no gray area. It's like you stop drinking and you're telling me you're not drinking. So, oh, I'm going to whisper behind your back now. There must be some sort of problem going on. And that's the cool thing now about how things are changing up in the alcohol-free community, is that our younger generation is choosing it for a lifestyle. And then also people are just saying, I just don't drink anymore. And I think again, midlife is the best time to say that. I don't drink anymore. It doesn't have any effect like it used to. It's making me feel really hungover for days. I mean, anybody, if they said that to you, wouldn't you say, well, good for you?
Good for you.
That's
Yeah.
good. nobody wants to be hungover for days, right? But I do know that the labels, the problems, being a problem drinker, being a heavy drinker, being an alcoholic, being a sober woman, sobriety, those are really scary terms. But when you can flip it and just allow yourself to flip it, like, I'm curious about this, I'm going to experiment with it, and I'm going to see how it helps me to maybe get some answers that I'm looking for. Because I couldn't have gotten any answers while drinking. I tried really hard. What is happening with me? Oh, let me just pour another glass of Chardonnay and block it out. I couldn't have gotten any answers until I quit drinking. So everybody is at a different spectrum with their drinking. Even if you are a light drinker, if you'd like to call yourself that, and you realize you're thinking about it a lot, I think that's a good place to start. It's
That's
not
good.
really the act of drinking. It's the thinking about drinking all the time.
The mindset
That's a good
behind
place
it.
to start.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a really great point. I mean, we talk about that a lot here. Just what's our mindset with taking care of ourselves, and it's not so we will look a certain way, right? It is so that we can do whatever it is that we feel is our purpose, and being able to do that. So I love that mindset shift change. And I also, you talk about being a sober woman. I do think that we are seeing more leadership culturally and socially with that. Like, one who comes to mind is Brene Brown, who's very open and transparent about her. She's been sober for a really long time. And like, I love Dax Shepard's podcast, and he talks about it too. And then he was very open when he, had a little stumbling block. And so I think that that's really helpful too, to see people who have walked through that and who are thriving and who still have challenges. So you might too, but I think it's really good leadership with that.
Yeah, I think so too. And we need more women to speak out, and a lot more women are speaking out about it. And that's why I say the alcohol-free community, especially women in our generation and beyond. There's a lot of women out there who are participating in this and speaking and telling their stories. I've had a lot of them on my podcast. So
yeah. So that's a
it's
great
time.
start. That's a great place to start too. Well, while we're on that subject, tell everybody a little bit about your podcast, and then I have one more. And then I'll also just open that up. Like, is there anything that I haven't asked that you would really like to for people to know or to encourage my community with? So tell them about your podcast, and then anything else that we haven't covered that you want, that's just burning in your heart to say.
Yeah, we've covered a lot. My podcast, 250 and Beyond, I started it back in February of 2018. And I really just had this pull to talk about menopause. I always say talk about the things we don't talk about. Talk about menopause, talk about sobriety and addiction. And so I started this little podcast in my closet on my iPhone. I had no idea what I was doing. I never thought I would speak publicly about my drinking, but I really, I got the bug when I joined Instagram in 2015, and my account was 250 and Beyond. I wanted to get in the best shape of my life before I turned 50. And I thought, maybe I'll get some accountability here, and I'm going to open up a public Instagram account. I thought that was a really good idea. And it was. It changed everything for me. And so that's where the podcast was born. It's grown over time. I'm still sticking with the same messages and mission there. And I just, I get such a kick out of it. I love it so much. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I was somebody who didn't like to even talk on the phone. Oh, I just love podcasting.
I do too.
It's so fun.
I do too. It's funny. About last April, for the first time, I had my Clifton Strengths Finders assessment done. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So one of my top 5 is connectedness, and it was this huge, and input is my number 1. So I'm like, this is why I love podcasting so much, because I get on, I get to connect. I mean, how else would you and I have had this opportunity to talk, Lori, if not for podcasting? And then I'm learning. And so it just fills me. I love it so much. I don't love all of the back end aspects of it so much, but I do love the talking and the connecting for sure.
I'm with you, Amy, as we talked about before we started recording. I am with you on that. And I feel like my number 1 strength is humor. And I like to use humor on my podcast. So you're right. I use that a lot because I feel like we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break when we're dealing with this hard stuff. Right. So yeah, yes. I absolutely enjoy it.
Humor is so necessary too, especially when we're talking about some of the harder things like sobriety or menopause or yeah, all of those things that are kind of hitting us. So I love
Yes,
that.
all of it.
Yes, all of it. Okay, I have a few questions that I ask all of my guests. Number one is I really like learning about tattoos because I feel like when people decide to put something on their body for the rest of their life, it often, not always, but often has a story behind it. So I was wondering if you had any tattoos, if you would mind sharing what it means or the meaning behind it, if you have one and what it is. And if you don't have one, but had to get one, what would you get and where would it go?
I don't have any tattoos. I've thought about it throughout the years. I remember seeing Drew Barrymore in a Vogue magazine, and she has a butterfly down like on her lower stomach, and it was just really pretty. And I've always just resonated with butterflies. I think because transformation, and so I always thought, well, I'm going to get a butterfly, and maybe I'll get like 1111 because that's my birth date, and then it also has other meaning. November 11th, 1111. I actually saw Jennifer Aniston has 1111 on her wrist, and I was thinking, oh, that's exactly where I would get it. But I don't want to copy Jennifer Aniston. If I put the butterfly there, no, that would be different. I don't think I'll get one at this point just because of the gravity of my skin. I would be too worried about, like, especially on my arm, like, oh, it's just going to go all over the place if I have a tattoo. If I did, maybe at this point, this is a very long story. Maybe at this point, I would do a butterfly like on the back, on my maybe like right on my what is that called? My shoulder
Like the
blade.
nape of your neck?
Yeah, but in the back with my sobriety date and maybe like a little butterfly. I think that would be
Oh,
cool.
yeah, I love that. I had the same thought. I don't have one. We've had this conversation at my house a lot. And my boys are like, Mom, are you going to get a tattoo? I'm like, I don't think I am, but I just like learning about them. I've had some really meaningful
I did
conversations with
too.
people just saying, I really like your tattoo. Can you tell me about it? And it's just, it just opens up a lot of doors and in terms of connecting with people, which Clifton Strengths tells me that I like to do.
Yeah, I get that because it is very meaningful to people, and people
Mhm.
are so creative with it, and they design their own, and they take a lot of time. Yeah, I'm the same, but
Yeah.
yeah, I probably won't get it now at 55. I don't know, maybe.
You never know. You never know. Okay, so we already
Never know.
talked about your podcast, 250 and beyond. Tell everybody else how they can connect with you beyond the podcast.
LoriMassicot.com. That is where I am. I have taken this year off of social media. I'm actually starting a brand new Instagram account at the beginning of the year that I'm working on. I just realized that I was taking so much time being on my phone that I started really looking into productivity and the fact that my phone has become like a crutch. So I'll be back on social media after the first of the year. Minimally, but the best place to find me is LoriMassicot.com or 250 and beyond.
That's great. That's great. I could go on and on about the whole social media thing from a business perspective
Yeah.
and from a time suck. I totally am with you on that. I feel your pain
Yeah.
for sure.
Take a
For
year off,
sure.
Amy. It's worth it.
I do take time off periodically. Like I'll take like a month off or 6 weeks or something like that, kind of depending on the season and what's in my heart. But yeah, I totally get it. Okay, so one of the things that I like to ask my guests to do, and by the way, this is airing November 29th. So this is a really great time to reflect on this conversation and perhaps create your own news story surrounding holidays. Maybe it's a news story surrounding the first of the year if you are doing a reset with your health. If you're listening and this is just kind of piquing something or sparking something, I encourage people to kind of think about it and be curious about what that might look like if alcohol is part of your story right now. And maybe it's just an experiment. I'm a huge fan of experiments, but I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and giving us some other ways to think about alcohol, Lori. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Amy. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Okay, I'm going to let you have the final word. What is one simple thing that you would like someone listening to remember about this conversation? It can be a huge overarching, it can be a really small nugget, but just one simple thing to walk away with and remember.
Listen, to the gal out there who is listening and really worried about her drinking, or maybe this sparked something in you that says, maybe I'm going to take a look at this. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Know that you do not have to be a problem drinker to take a break from drinking, to explore what is important to you and maybe align to your values and your strengths, and see what's next for you. I think just what I said, drinking is one option. And in sobriety, in my experience, I've given myself, opened the door to so many other options that I would have never had found. I wouldn't be here with you today if I hadn't have taken that chance on myself. And just know that you're going to be okay. You are going to be okay. There's so many other things that you can do to enjoy yourself without drinking.
That's fantastic. See what's next and you're going to be okay. Okay, that is